Thank, thank you so much, Maria. I'd like to welcome you all to our Teaching by Design lesson planning for adult learners. I'm your facilitator, Deanne Berryhill, and I'm glad to have you all here today. As teachers, we all, excuse me, try that again. As teachers, we always want to improve our ability to address the concepts and content that we want to share with our students. Have you ever wondered how to get better engagement in a lesson plan that you have? How can I do that, you might ask? Or you might be here because you've experienced some of those same feelings of frustration. Or you may be here simply to refresh your lesson planning process for whatever reason, whatever case. You're in the right place, so let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive into our agenda today, let's do a couple of overview items. I'd like to get a feel for who's joining us today, so let's start with a poll. You're going to see a poll come up on the screen, and you will simply select your choice. How many times have you participated in a CalPro facilitated online course before? Okay, good. All right. Okay, I think 7 out of 7. All right. We have a good response here, and we have a mixed response as well. Can everybody see the responses? Okay. All right, so we have some people who've been here many times, at least once my first time. That's a good way to have a community of learners together because we can all share with each other and learn from each other as well. Okay, welcome again. This is an important question because you may have read as you registered that this course is a little bit different than other online facilitated courses. This course is only 1 week. It has one webinar, which is today's webinar. And after our webinar today, you'll have 3 hours of activities in Moodle to look at and do. And upon successful completion of the course, you'll receive a certificate of completion. Our course runs from today, October 13th, through Sunday, October 19th. Those of you who have already logged in and begun the coursework, I've seen a few people online. Welcome to those people, and I encourage all of you to get started on the Moodle activities as soon as you can. The week goes pretty fast, actually. Before I give you the opportunity to ask additional questions, you might be wondering what the purpose of a 1-week course. We are offering a format as easy on time, but it still gives you a quick impact. You can take this information and apply it immediately. We provide you with essential skills for teachers, and it's targeted for teachers of all subjects, as well as it also sets the stage for growth into a more advanced exploration of lesson planning techniques. So at this time, do you have any clarifications that you would like regarding how our course is set up? Anybody? You can unmute yourself or type a question in the chat box. Everybody good? Looks like we are. Okay, very good. Then let's continue. The purpose of today's lesson and webinar is to dive into our course topic. We want to talk about the principles of andragogy, creating objectives, and learning about lesson planning models, and specifically one known as WIPIA. So let's begin with the principle of andragogy and consider its relation to lesson planning. When we are teaching adults, we're looking at what we call andragogy. Malcolm Knowles created this theory, which is the art and science of teaching adults, as opposed to pedagogy, which is the art and science of teaching children. Pedagogy refers to the K-12 levels, andragogy refers to teaching adults. The term was initially coined by a German teacher, Alexander Kapp, but Knowles is credited with the adoption of it into adult education. The concept actually goes all the way back to Plato's education theory, andra meaning man, which is contrasted with peda meaning child, and the gaji suffix meaning leading. So if we are using andragogy, we are leading adults. Let's take a moment to take a temperature check here. We'd like to know if you have ever heard of andragogy before. You'll see a poll, and you have some choices there to select. And again, we have a blended group today. Some are familiar with it, some have heard of it, and a few people are not aware of what it is. So let's create our learning community and share this information. Okay. To get a better understanding of the term andragogy, let's dive a little bit deeper. There are 6 principles of andragogy according to Knowles. He argued that adult learners express a greater demand for relevancy compared to children. And understanding the 6 principles can help us understand our adult learners and guide us through the lesson planning process. These 6 principles are self-concept, the role of experience, readiness to learn, orientation to learning, motivation to learn, and the need to know. The first principle, self-concept, refers to the evolving perception of oneself as a learner. We think of ourselves differently, and we think differently about the way we learn as we grow into adulthood. For example, adults, unlike children, tend to identify themselves as being responsible for their decisions, including the decision to learn. Adult learners choose to attend classes, whereas for children, it's more of a requirement as opposed to an option. Adult learners take responsibility for their own learning and make decisions about how and what they learn. How do you see this principle showing up in your class?
Deanne, I'm going to just interject quickly. I'm noticing that out of a fairly small session, we have a couple of folks who have shared in the chat that they're having some glitching. And so I just wanted to check across the group. Are there any
Oh,
others? Um, you're coming through clearly for me, but I want to make sure that we are doing okay. My connection is great. Okay,
yeah.
so it might have just been kind of a one-off with 2 different people.
Okay,
So we'll go
okay.
ahead. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption. Just
No
wanted
problem.
to
No
do
problem.
individual
Everybody,
troubleshooting or group as needed. So apologies for that. Thanks, Deanne. Go ahead.
okay, no problem at all. That's really important because I do have headset here that if I need to put that on, I can, and that might improve it if you have continued problems. Okay, so um, let's get back to our first principle of andragogy, self-concept. How do you see this principle showing up in your classroom? What does that look like? You can respond in the chat box or just simply unmute yourself and share. Anybody have a Okay.
I work with individuals. My name is Danielle. I work
Yeah.
with individuals with disabilities, and for 36 years,
Mm,
almost all adults. I work with special ed for some point in time, but especially with my individuals with disabilities, self-conception is huge,
yeah.
especially with what outside influences have curbed this self-conception. If they've been
Yeah.
told they've been no good their whole lives, or the R word that everybody loves to call them, anything like that, I'm literally getting just trying to get them to self-conceptualize that they're smart and that they
Yeah.
can learn,
Yeah.
is a concept that's very, very difficult to get across.
That's an excellent point that you bring out, Danielle. It's 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 amazing to find out that people have struggled with this type of thing their entire life. So, um, thank you for the work that you do. I know it's appreciated. Anybody else? The second principle, the role. Oh, yes, Maria.
Oh, well, I just wanted to say that it also is affected or by cultural backgrounds, and men and women are different. I teach adults at ABA.
Mhm.
I'm online. I've been online
Mm.
since 2005, and that's also powerful and hard to overcome.
Mhm.
That you know, in my culture, we don't do this. Women don't do that. Men
Right.
do this. So.
Do you think that self-concept differs in the classroom compared to online? Have you seen anything about that?
You know, I think it might be the same. I taught in person for many years before
Uh-huh.
going online. It's just very interesting to address, especially when I pair a man and a woman. Like sometimes I think I want two men,
Mm.
two women, you know, and no, I think it might be across the board. And then I have a lot of students that are the Spanish backgrounds are Latino, but I
Yes.
also have students that are Ukrainian and Russian and
Mhm.
from Asian countries, and that's also different. So trying to
Mhm.
find a common ground is where
Mhm.
I kind of want to go from.
Mhm. Well, that's a beautiful segue. Our second principle is the role of experience. And it notes that adults carry with them a wide range of life experiences, far more than children, simply due to the fact they've been around for a longer period of time. In other words, because adult learners have more life experience compared to children, we can use that life experience to influence how we teach them. Allowing our students to bring their lived experiences into the classrooms can make learning more meaningful and applicable to their real life. A teacher can evaluate prior knowledge or experience in a variety of ways that can be included in the lesson planning process in order to gauge what your students do and don't know before introducing a new lesson or topic. Sometimes I think that when students do find that they have common experiences, then I think that that in fact reinforces their self-concept, that they are not alone in what they're experiencing and they're able to share with the other people in the class. Thank you for that. The third principle, readiness to learn, is something you have probably experienced in your classroom. Adult learners tend to express motivation, eagerness, and overall readiness to learn, especially if the learning is relevant to their current life situation and needs, such as career advancement, solving problems, or meeting personal goals. The next principle, orientation to learning, focuses on the idea that adult learners are often problem-oriented rather than subject-oriented when it comes to learning, according to Knowles. Adult learners prefer learning that is practical, focused on real-world applications, and immediately relevant to their tasks or goals. We'll see an example of a lesson plan in today's webinar that demonstrates a structure that is specifically for teaching adult learners. If you have any comments too, you can just bop in and make a comment as we talk about these principles if you like. Motivation to learn refers to the fact that adults are mainly motivated by internal factors, having the desire to achieve something, uh, for satisfaction, curiosity, or self-development, just to name a few. To really understand your learners at the beginning of a new class, you can always ask, why did you decide to enroll in this class? Knowing the motivation behind the student's desire to learn can also influence how you plan and approach the teaching. Can you think of an example of a clear student motivation you have seen? Go ahead and either unmute yourself or post a comment in the chat box. Anybody?
I work in a state it's institutional. We try not to call it that, but
Yeah.
their motivation to learn is to move out to the community. They've been in
Ah.
the institution for so long.
Mhm.
We're a step down from PDC from Porterville, so
Okay.
they're criminal type behaviors, and they're motivated to learn and so they can go out to the community and live a better life. But a lot of our problems and with the students we teach is they've been so institutionalized for so long that sometimes they self-sabotage themselves, or when they're getting ready to go to transition to placement, they'll get so nervous, and you
Mhm.
could see them self-sabotaging their placement because they're so scared to go out to the community. So you got to see that, especially during testing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge motivation for your students. And is it feasible for them? Are there connections out there in the world that makes that a goal so that they can achieve?
Yes. So we have individuals that are all under regional center systems. They all have a regional center representative that place them in the community. They are the placement agency. So we just to provide the services they need to be
Hmm.
um, successful in the community. And yeah, they move and they do amazing things and wonderful things. And yeah, and I'm building something in the community, hopefully post secondary for them,
Hmm.
if God
Yeah.
willing. Let's hope.
Mhm. There's some good comments in the chat box. In addition to the motivation for moving out into the community, kids helping kids with their homework, being able to pass the citizenship exam, being able to talk to, the children's teachers and other agencies out there where people need to be able to communicate effectively. Okay, thanks. Great comments. Great comments, you guys. Okay. Lastly, the need to know principle relates to the adult learner's preference for self-direction. Adults, unlike young learners, feel a strong need to understand the relevance and importance of why they are being asked to learn, according to Knowles. It's important to embed that why into your instructional planning. It's likely your learners will think about the importance or relevance of the topic they are learning. When you introduce a new concept, it helps make clear how it will help the learner in specific situations. For example, we're going to learn to talk about and how to write down a strong goal today because goal setting helps us reach our goals and be successful. I've often asked my students, why do you think I'm bringing this lesson to you today? And it's usually have some pretty good conversations that revolve around that. It helps them to really understand and make more connection with what it is that they need to know. So overall, understanding these 6 principles of andragogy not only helps us understand our adult learners and the way they learn, but it can also help guide the design of effective lesson planning. Keep these principles in mind as we move into creating objectives, which is the place we're going to start with the lesson plan process. So we're going to start with creating objectives for our lesson plan today. And to do that, we need to identify our goal. What is it that we want our students to learn in the end? What's that goal? Answering these questions helps us write in detail how we will prepare our students to learn something called the writing objectives. Therefore, here we would like to introduce you to what we call the ABCDs of writing objectives. These objectives can help us be more concise with how we plan our students' learning. You can follow along in handout 1. The handouts, are posted in the chat box. Also, they are in Moodle if you went ahead and downloaded them. We'll be looking and referring to these as we go through the writing of objectives and also the lesson plan process. So the A deals with audience. This specifies who the objective is written for. Typically, it refers to the learners or the students. And the objective should explicitly identify the group of individuals the learning outcome applies to, whether it's ESL, ABE, ASC, or CTE. The B indicates the behavior. This defines what the audience will be able to do. It's expressed as an action verb that indicates observable and measurable performance. Some examples could be writing a paragraph, students calling their children's school and reporting that their child is sick. The C in our ABCDs of writing objectives means condition. This outlines under what circumstances or in what context the behavior will occur. It may include specific tools, resources, or situations the learner will use or face while demonstrating the behavior. And finally, the D refers to degree. This describes to what extent the behavior must be performed to meet the objective. It sets the standards of acceptable performance, such as accuracy, speed, or level of proficiency. So looking at our example objective, it reads, when one of their children is ill, the condition, ESL students, our audience, will be able to phone the school office to report their child's absence, the behavior, with a 90% accuracy, the degree. So by using the ABCD framework, objectives become focused, actionable, and accessible, helping educators design effective instruction and evaluate successfully learner success. Oh, pardon me. We have this first example we need to look at. So we'll take a closer look at the ABCD model that helps us write clear and actionable objectives for our learners. In this example, we're focusing on foundational vocabulary, which is essential for the Level 1 ESL students who are just beginning their English language fluency. Here's the objective. When shown a simple grocery list, the condition, Level 1 ESL students, the audience, will be able to identify and say the names of at least 5 common food items in English. Our behavior, with an 80% accuracy, the degree of proficiency that we want. So we break it down. When shown a simple grocery list, this is the condition which specifies the context in which the task will occur. It's straightforward and it ensures learners have a concrete reference. Next, the Level 1 ESL students, this is our audience, of course, clearly identifying who the objective is intended for. This level aligns with students who are just starting to build their English vocabulary. Then we'll be able to identify and say the names of at least 5 common food groups in English. This is the behavior we're looking for, or what the students will actively do. It uses actionable verbs like identify and say, and that makes it measurable. Finally, with 80% accuracy, this is a degree, setting a clear standard for acceptable performance. It gives both the teacher and students a tangible goal to work toward. So by breaking the objective into these 4 components, we ensure clarity for both instruction and assessment. This approach also helps us design activities that align directly with the objective, such as matching pictures to words or practicing pronunciation pairs. Another example deals with math skills. Given a basic calculator and a set of sample utility bills, adult math students will be able to add, subtract, and calculate the total monthly expenses with a 95% accuracy. So once again, we have given a basic calculator and a set of sample utility bills. This is the condition. It specifies the tools and context under which students will perform that task, ensuring the situation is realistic and relatable. The audience is adult math students, clearly identifying the learners who will be working toward this objective. The behavior is to add, subtract, and calculate the total monthly expenses. These action verbs describe specific skills that are measurable and practical for everyday life. And finally, the degree is with 95% accuracy, setting a clear standard for success that both students and instructors can assess. This objective emphasizes practical math skills that adult learners can apply to manage their finances, making it both relevant and actionable. So let's put into practice what we've just learned. We're going to do an activity as a group to practice making clear learning objectives. We are going to take a look at an objective. We're going to read that original objective. Then we're going to revise or rewrite the original objective to be more specific and be sure to include our audience, behavior, condition, and degree. Then you are going to share your written or revised version of this objective in the chat. Might be able to do that with the small group. We could do just vocal too, couldn't we? Yeah. So students will learn to write professional emails. That's our original objective. We need to rewrite this so that we be sure we include audience, behavior, condition, and degree. Going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to work on this, and then you can either share your response in the chat box or you can share it by turning on your mic. Is there any need for clarification? Anybody have any questions about this? Okay. So you want to be sure you target all 4 criteria: audience, behavior, condition, and degree. You can certainly refer to your handouts. This is in handout 1. Maybe 1 more minute. Okay, all right. Danielle says all ABE students will learn how to, let's see here. All ABE students will learn how to write professional emails independently with 90% accuracy by, and fill in the date. That's a good one. Okay. Maria says students will write an email in Schoology to their teacher to explain an upcoming absence with 80% accuracy. Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah, it's interesting. You start putting these 4 things together, and eventually that's how you think, right? Okay, so we had also from Hoa, students will learn how to write a professional email to school administrator regarding healthier food options in the school cafeteria. That sounds like a good one too. To request a day off, coming from Amy. ELL IET students will be able to write a professional email, direct and polite, with minimal typing errors, 90% accuracy. Well done. Okay. And Laura says, when shown email examples, most ESL students will learn to write professional emails to their teacher for an absence on district email with 90% accuracy. Okay. Well done. Well done. Okay. Any other clarification? Anybody want to add to that? Okay, I think you've done a good job on that. All right. So there we go. Thank you all for sharing. You're able to, were you and Clay able to include all the elements? I think most everybody got most of them. Was there one that was more difficult to include than the others? You can unmute your mic and say, did you experience any more difficulty with one than than another? Say degree, condition, behavior, audience. Anybody?
Yeah, I was thinking about the degree. I think
Yeah.
that it's easy to throw a percentage at it, but what does that really mean? And I think it just made me think more about assessment, and like if I
Mhm.
had a rubric, like that would help me know exactly what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. But right now in the objective, I wasn't really sure what the degree should be. Um, Without knowing, like later when I know exactly the criteria that would go into this
Mhm.
email, then the degree would maybe become more clear.
I agree. I agree. Anybody else, Maria?
It's the same thing I think Amy was thinking about is that, well, I know I teach level 3A and B. So for me, the degree is the accuracy of that level. But in my objectives, I never write the degree because I use a rubric in all my work. And I
Yeah.
preview the rubric with my students and for each assignment,
Mhm.
even at discussion, like you're gonna get 1 point to 4 points.
Right.
And that's the degree, but I don't write my objectives like that. I write objectives daily and I show them to the class so that they know what we're doing in
Mhm.
slides that are in Schoology so they can go back and reread. But
Mhm.
I don't do the 80%. Although when the students come in to my class, I tell them they have to complete the material at 80%, 75 actually, I think 75 to 80. And I have
Mhm.
the Schoology work grade book that
Yeah.
reflects their work.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, go to your grade book and check your scores. So the
Mhm.
degree is not something I would write in an objective. It might like,
Mhm.
if I said 80% in class, it might be, you know,
Yeah.
it might cause some trepidation. But if I say, look at the rubric,
Mhm.
you can get at 16 points, 9 points, 12 points, 8 points. And if you get 8 points and you're below where we need to be, so we need to work on
Mhm.
rewriting material. So that's a
Mhm.
little bit, I do a little different.
Yeah, and I think you make a very good point. I think that it lends itself in some subject areas a little more easily than others.
Mm.
And using a rubric too, I teach writing for the GED, and I use a rubric. And of course, I use the GED scoring criteria there too. But especially for things that can be put into a category of what does it look like if it has an 80% um, completion on an assignment. The degree I think lends itself to being defined. But it's good to think about because you do have to think about what is that mark that you want students to achieve. I think that's really what we're working with the category of degree here. Okay, I think we got. Okay, Amy says it guides me in my lesson to focus on proper email formatting. Yeah, absolutely. Well, here is an example of revising that particular um, objective. After a lesson on email format condition, adult learners in a business writing class audience will be able to draft a professional email behavior with no more than 2 grammar or formatting errors, and that's the degree. So there's a little bit different explanation of how degree works. Okay. And I want to point out that you probably already noticed this, that when you use the ABCDs to write objectives, you don't need to do it in ABC order because most of these objectives come with the condition first. Okay, so let's try one more example before moving on to our lesson planning process. Our instructions are the same. We're going to read the original objective and revise it using the ABCDs of writing. And the objective is ESL students will practice ordering food. And then you'll go ahead and put your responses in the chat box. So you want to revise it and see what you can do with audience, behavior, condition, and degree for this particular one. And I'll give you another few minutes here, about 3 minutes, so 1:43. And go ahead and take a look at that. And that is also on handout 1. Maybe 1 more minute. Okay, Danielle says when given a list of menu items, ESL students will practice ordering their food by choosing one of the menu items with 90% accuracy. Monica says ESL students will review the number, name of the food, and manners about ordering food. Okay. Okay. In ordering food in a drive-through, ESL students, this is Amy, ESL 3 students will be able to order food and clarify meaning to receive the correct order. And she notes she tried to be creative and got a bit lost in this one. Haha. I think it's pretty good, yeah. And then you could add what you need to that. That would be good. Maybrit says, hello, I will not be able to stay on today. Okay, that's fine. You can review this in the recording, and good luck with your conference. Okay. ESL students will read, this is Maria, will read an online menu and order meal for lunch from Grubhub with 80% accuracy. Very nice. After learning vocabulary for ordering food, ESL level 2 students will use a conversation handout to practice ordering food. Oh, I like that. Okay, so the little bit of role playing, that's good. Okay. ESL Vera says, is that your correct pronunciation of your name? Avira? Okay. ESL level 3 learners will place complex food orders by phone, including asking questions and special handling. for minimal errors. Okay, yes, thank you, Vera. Okay, all right. Very good. Okay, I think we're doing well with this. You have on the screen an example answer that could be another example of how to rewrite the objective. In a role play activity, simulating a restaurant scenario, which is the condition, beginning ASL students, which is the audience, will be able to place a food order using complete sentences, the behavior, with 80% accuracy, which is the degree. And with this spelled out, then you know that the degree you can manage because you're looking at complete sentences. And so I think it works with that particular activity. All right. Excellent work. Excellent work. Let's continue the conversation with a specific lesson planning model that can serve as a very useful guide. You can reflect on the objectives that you wrote and always go back and see if you were able to target each of the categories. So let's take a look at our WIPIA lesson planning model. This lesson planning model draws on some of the principles of andragogy that we've discussed a little bit earlier in this session. Let's see how that concept unfolds using the lesson plan. There are 6 sections to this effective lesson. We'll preview it by identifying what those are, and then we'll talk in more depth about each category. We have a warm-up review, introduction, presentation, practice, evaluation, and application. Those are the basic categories of the WIPIA lesson plan format. You'll notice that that is what creates the acronym for it. We have a better idea now of how to write objectives with clarity and intention, and its a relation to andragogy. Let's build on that skill and learn about the WIPIA lesson planning model. The W stands for warm-up and or review. We know from neuroscience studies that we learn better from something we already know. This allows us to see patterns more quickly. We can pose a question related to the lesson topic that will get students thinking about the topic. Then we move on to the I, the introducing something new. Whereas the warm-up identifies what we already know, the introduction tells us what we're going to do today and why it is important. We know from adult learning principles that this is critical. A strong introduction can really make the difference in engaging students in the lesson. It can be as short as 30 seconds, addressing what we are doing and why, or it could be longer depending upon your new material or skill that you're going to introduce. The first P is for presentation. This is usually done by the teacher, but it could be a video, it could be an article, it could be a presentation from another student. Here we explore the new material in more depth. The next P is for practice. You want the students to practice the skill that you have presented. This is a guided practice so that students can have a hand at trying the new skill that is presented in a safe learning environment. As the students engage in this practice activity, the teacher can informally observe students and assess their level of understanding. There may be several rounds of presentation and practice in one lesson. The example we're going to share with you has that. It has 3 activities in the practice session there. The next step is the E for evaluation and R for reflection. How well have the learners mastered the task? Can they do it on their own? Can they explain it to someone else? You have been observing and doing formative assessments during the lesson, but this becomes a summative assessment to help you determine whether your teaching has been successful. It could be a quiz, a performance task, a student presentation, or something else. Finally, the A is for application. This is the step where we want students to use the new skill in a similar way, but in a new situation. It can be a task outside the classroom that is relevant to their life experience. such as making a phone call to a business or a school, leaving you a voice message about their absence, filling out a real job application, or interviewing a friend or family member. It depends on what the lesson content is. And you can actually, you notice you have the evaluation review. You can actually do the reflection after the evaluation. You can also do the reflection after the application. It just depends on when you want the students to reflect on what they have learned. But that's an additional piece that's a really good thing to include in all your lessons because it gives you information that you can use to plan going forward. Okay. Any clarification at this point? Anybody have any questions about this lesson format? I'm curious, do any of you already use this? Okay. For me, this is the working smart. This is a working smart part to teaching. And I think it really gets you where you want to go. So let's take a look at the process. We've got the format, but now let's take a look at the process. And I love this wheel. It represents the lesson planning process. You can see that the objective is right in the middle, right there, right? A measurable objective. Students will be able to do thus and so. Okay. Notice that we always want to start with what students are doing, not what I'm doing as the teacher. And how can we measure it? Starting with the objective is the core of what we call backward design because how we evaluate that objective becomes a proof of whether or not we have met our goal. Based on our objective, the next step is to create the summative assessment. Okay, and that is the essence of backward design. We start with the end in mind, so we create our evaluation there. Okay. I lost my cursor. Okay, wait a minute here. My apologies. Let's get back to our wheel. Okay, so we start with the objective, and then we go to the summative evaluation, and then we go back to the warm up and start our lesson process there. So how will we warm up our students to the topic or review our prior knowledge? How will we introduce the new material or skill? What method of presentation would work best for this new concept, skill, or material? What is a valid practice for the students to engage in? Now we are back at the objective evaluation, and hopefully, because we have planned an effective lesson using all the steps, the students can demonstrate mastery. Finally, we move on to the application, and that's the step that allows students to use their knowledge in a new situation or new environment. Mission accomplished. Hopefully. And please, I want you to note too, the yellow arrows indicate that as you're going through each of these pieces, you are doing formative assessments all along the way. Okay. And Adria has posted the image in the chat box for you to access. Okay. I think this is a real good combination with the format of the WIPIA lesson plan. This is how you put it into action. Any questions, comments, concerns at this point? Everybody good? Okay. So now refer to handout 2 that you have, okay? We're going to take a look at an example lesson plan together. I'll give you about 30 seconds to read the slide to familiarize yourself with the kind of lesson that this is. You can also find this, like I said, in handout 2, page 3. So in the chat box, what program is this lesson plan for? What program is it for? Okay.
Civics.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to extend my bar here. Okay, absolutely. EL Civics, ESL. That tells us who our audience is, right? It's an ESL or EL Civics class, or both, actually. Can I get a volunteer to read the lesson objective for us that shows on the screen? And I'm looking for hands, here.
Sure. Hi, Leanne.
Okay.
So
Tony.
the lesson, hi. The lesson objective is, in a workplace setting, students will be able to describe proper safety procedures for a given task using transitions of time to write steps in chronological order with no more than 2 spelling or grammatical errors.
Thank you very much for reading for us. Now we have an idea of what this goal is of the lesson plan. Students will be learning how to use transitions of time to write steps in chronological order and describe proper safety procedures in the context of identifying safety signs in the workplace. Let's take a look and see how this teacher plans to accomplish that with their students. Remember, we go to the evaluation after we have the objective. We create this assessment at the beginning of writing the lesson to give direction to the lesson, and so we can measure how well students can apply the skills they've learned. Let's start by reviewing the objectives for this activity. Students will use transitions of time to write steps in chronological order, and they're going to describe proper safety procedures for a given task. Begin by showing students the sample workplace safety poster. Again, highlight how each steps include a brief explanation and an image to support the text. Next, provide students with a safety poster template. This template has space for 6 steps, descriptions, images, and a title, and instruct them to use the sentences they already created, adding more detail as needed. Make sure to reassure students that it isn't an art class. The drawings don't need to be perfect. Their purpose is to support the written instructions. And while students work on their posters, walk around to provide support. Check that they are putting their instructions in the correct chronological order and that they use transitions of time appropriately. When it comes time to evaluate the posters, you'll focus on these criteria: using transitions of time for each step and using them correctly, writing steps that start with a verb and are grammatically correct, including brief descriptions after each step. This is a lower priority. Creating relevant images to complement each step, which is also a lower priority. And finally, for the student reflection activity, hand out a checklist with the questions. Did you write 6 steps? Did you begin each step with a transition of time? Did you start each step with a verb? Did you write an explanation for each step? And did you include an image that was relevant to the step? Encourage students to review their own work using the checklist. As you walk around, engage with students about their responses and provide feedback if necessary. This process ensures students can reflect on their learning, and it reinforces their understanding of the key objectives. Okay. So we have the objective, we have the evaluation. Now take a look at the first page of handout 2, which is on page 3 in your handout packet, where we will be doing the warm-up and introducing the new lesson topic. Can I get a volunteer to read the warm-up for us?
Goal number 3.
Okay. All right, Maria?
Read the introduction.
Read the warm-up and review.
Oh, the warm up and review.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm on the right page.
Yeah, it's just show a short video about workplace hazards.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see it. I'm sorry. Yes.
That's
Show-
okay. No biggie.
Short video about workplace hazards, and then we've got the YouTube.
Yeah.
Write a question on the board. What are some commonplace injuries? Give a personal example, such as one time when I worked at a restaurant, I slipped on a wet floor and fell on my back. There was no sign indicating someone had mopped the area. Have students share their own experiences and knowledge about workplace injuries, a whole group activity. Duration of activity, 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Maria, for reading. This warm-up is introducing the concepts of injuries and safety in the workplace. Students can relate and share their own experiences during this warm-up activity. Then we can see the introduction activity as well, which creates a motivation for the new topic being learned, so students will know how to use these skills in their real lives. Can I get a volunteer to read our introduction?
I can do it. It says,
Okay, Elvira, thank you.
write the objective on the board. Today we'll make workplace safety posters to make sure employees don't get hurt. Explain that students will be using 2 skills, using transitions of time to explain steps and use work-related vocabulary. Explain that these skills can also be used in other situations in which they need to give instructions. And the duration of the activity, 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Elvira, for reading that introduction for us. I want to point out, I want you to notice that the words you use to present the objective to your students is student-friendly and level appropriate. When we write out objectives, we write them out a certain way. But when we present it to students, we need to make sure that it's in the vocabulary they can understand so they can really be successful. Okay. Okay, we remember that the first P in WIPIA is presentation. This is where you can plan the actual teaching of the new information or skill using various strategies, and you can check for understanding in this stage too. Can I get a volunteer to read the presentation piece of this lesson plan? Okay, looking for volunteer.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay, part 1, show an example of a simple safety poster. Ask these questions and have students answer. What is the problem? How many steps are there? And does each sentence begin with a verb or action word?
Okay, all right. The presentation, thank you very much. I didn't see who that was. Can you tell me who you are?
Amy.
Amy.
Amy, thank you very much.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. The presentation or new information is being taught through examples of safety posters followed by questions that allow students to practice their reading and speaking as well. So let's see what this practice looks like. Practice 3. This practice has 3 different activities. Okay, you'll see that this is listed as activity 1. If you look at your handout, you'll see 2 more activities. Okay. We're going to look at just the first 2. On the screen, we're looking at activity 1 right now, and it reads, give students a handout of a different safety poster, ask students in pairs to answer the following questions about the handout. What is the problem? How many steps are there? Does each sentence begin with a verb or action word? And then you walk around the classroom and give feedback and guide students when necessary. This guided practice really is important as you're not only doing the guided practice, but you're doing your formative assessment to see where the lesson plan is going and how students are interacting. Okay. That's our first presentation and practice. So now we're going to get involved in a short breakout room activity. We can take a look at another opportunity to think about how to have a different practice activity for this presentation from the previous slide. Here's a sample workplace safety poster that reads, employees must wash their hands before returning to work. That's a good idea. Let's say that this is a safety poster you are going to give to your intermediate ESL class. Based on the WIPIA lesson planning model, what practice activity would you be able to create to go along with this presentation? you'll work in a breakout room. You'll have about 5 minutes to work on this activity, and then we can return and you can share out your ideas. And you might want to go ahead when you go into the breakout room is appoint somebody who is going to be the person who shares. So we have about 5 minutes in the breakout room, I believe. Maria?
Yep, 5 minutes, and I have three groups, or excuse me, 2 groups of 3, 2 groups of 2. Is that fine?
That works out really well. And
Yeah.
then in the chat box, you've posted, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
the directions.
Instructions are there. Alrighty, so those groups are okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the rooms, and participants, you'll be able to see a little button on your screen that will allow you to join. If you have any trouble, we're here to help you. So I'm gonna go ahead and open those rooms and go ahead and click join.
We'll be back about 2:10. Okay, looks like we're all back now. So let's have a share out time.
That's fast.
I know. Sometimes, yeah, it seems like a long time, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have to be back. So let's talk about it. Could we have a report from that we had 4 rooms? Can we have a report from each room, perhaps?
Room 1 had Abigail, Laura, and Paulina.
Okay. Room 1, what'd you come up with?
Abigail and I were saying about doing a demonstration using hand sanitizer on washing hands. You
Okay.
know, maybe going in, reading the sign, saying, "Oh, I need to wash my hands. What are the steps of washing your hands?" When COVID came, we were all very particular. How many times do you know, wash your,
Mm-hmm.
how many seconds, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We came up with something like that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Room 2, we had Maybrit and Tadesse, if that's correct.
Let's go to room 3. I think Maybrit and Tadessa both had to exit. So
Okay, excellent.
to-
Danielle and Amy?
Hi. We kind of thought we'd get our class up and moving and about, and we would create an unsafe scavenger hunt. And I thought I would go around the building, outside of the classroom or wherever outside, and put unsafe things, a branch on a walkway or a sharp edge somewhere or whatever, and have them come back. We'd have a list of things for them to find. And once we found them, we would have go back and fix those things and just explain how everybody's safety is everybody's responsibility. And when you see something, you need to report it.
Nice idea. Nice idea. I like that scavenger hunt. Okay. And in room 4, we have Maria and Long.
So we were kind of figuring it out. We thought we would begin with the what is the problem? Why you have to wash your hands? Why you would have to wash your hands? And then the steps to hand washing. And we were thinking also back to the pandemic. And I
Yeah.
was saying, I remember, because I've also taught IET, the importance of thoroughly washing your hands, and I guess maybe a demonstration. And that was as far as we got. And then
Yeah,
That's a good
we
idea,
also
though.
gave an example of because at AFOC at my site, our
Right.
ESL classes are close to the CT classes. So we had barbering in that back area of the building. And you know, we give examples of, you know, make sure you're touching chemicals all day, you're touching people's faces, you know, make sure you wash your hand thoroughly before.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay. Wow. You guys are phenomenal. It's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Wonderful ideas. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to remaining elements of the lesson plan, which is the presentation and practice. This is activity 2, where students will practice writing and organizing their instructions using the skills they've learned. Remind students they will be creating their own workplace safety posters. First, have students choose a workplace danger, hazard, or safety issue. You can borrow some of those from Danielle from her scavenger hunt. That would be handy. Then have them talk with classmates about what they should do to prevent these problems or what they should do after they have occurred. Walk around the classroom, give suggestions, and make sure students understand the instruction. To provide some additional clarity, you could give the example, you're working in a warehouse and a spill has occurred in the main aisle. You need to follow safety procedures to clean it up without risking injuries. Brainstorm with the whole class the steps to clean up the spill. The answer could look like this. Assess the type of spill and locate the necessary cleaning materials. Step 2, place warning signs around the area to alert coworkers. Step 3, use the appropriate cleaning supplies to clean the spill thoroughly. Step 4, dispose of any contaminated materials according to company protocols. Number 5, remove the warning signs once the area is completely dry and safe. In the practice portion of this activity, students will choose a potential safety hazard and discuss the importance of following the proper safety procedures. They will work individually or as a group to write down the steps needed to address the safety hazard in chronological order. And I just want to remind you at this point that there is actually one more activity in your handout. We're going to go ahead and move on to the evaluation piece of the lesson plan. We already discussed the evaluation. We created that after we established our objective. How does it look now? Is it actually actually going to evaluate the skills we taught? Do we need to make any changes here? You can have a brief discussion if you think you need to have anything changed on this, or we'll leave it as it is. It's good to go. And that will be our evaluation for the lesson. What do you think? You can either use your mic or respond in the chat box.
I like the evaluation. I think it would be nice once posters were made, if we could have like something in that students can open and read. I mean, I'm online, so for me, it would be posting something maybe in Schoology and having the students check yes, no, and then send it and then discussing it together. So I do that quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great way to deal with it online. Any other suggestions? Okay. All right. So
Possibly having like sentence starters, because sometimes they still like struggle just even creating the steps.
that's an excellent point. Sentence frames are always advantageous, especially if you depending on the group that you're dealing with and what their language skills are. And that's an excellent modeling to have the sentence frames for
I
them.
also think maybe letting the student, if they don't have all of the elements, they can redo their work.
I think so. Yeah.
Opportunity for success.
Yep. Being able to revise. Yeah.
Revise. Yeah, that's the word.
Okay. All right. Okay. The final step is the application stage of the WIPIA lesson plan model. This is where students get to practice and apply the skill we've been working on, but in a slightly different context. For this activity, you would explain to the students that they'll practice the skill as homework by applying it to a new situation. On the board, you could write the question, what are some other situations in which you can use this skill? Give a few examples, such as how to prevent a baby or a toddler from falling downstairs. Elicit some responses from your students and have them create a poster using the same template you did for the first time for a situation that involves instructions with a minimum of 6 steps, transitions of time, and a brief explanation for each one. And as an added treat, add a little title to it. So that could be the application process. Okay. All right. So comfort zone with the WIPIA lesson plan format. Are we good? Peer review is another good one Amy mentioned. Students can check each other's posters. That's a good one. Yeah, peer review too. Okay. Okay, all right. So we have one other breakout room activity that you're going to be working with a partner um, or a small group. And you're going to refer to handout 3. You're going to choose an annotator or reporter, and you're going to work together to match the WIPIA lesson plan model. It's all scrambled up. Okay, it's a lesson plan about ESL students learning about the weather and seasons. And so what you want to do is you will have a go ahead. You have a handout 3, and you have on the left-hand column, you have the order of the WIPIA lesson plan, and on the right-hand side, you have the descriptions, but the descriptions don't match up. So you want to be able to take a look at that and match them up appropriately. Okay, any clarification on those directions? Oh, this is just a matching activity, working together. Okay. I think we're ready for breakout rooms.
Alrighty, we're gonna have 3 groups of 3, so same as last time. Once I open it, you'll have that blue join button. Once you see it, go ahead and click on it, and we'll have about 5 minutes.
Hey. Welcome back, everybody. So let's take a look and see how you did. Starting with the warm-up and review, that was actually description C, okay? The introduction is F, okay? Presentation is B. Practice is E. Evaluation is D. And that leaves application for A. If I can get myself all the way up there, kind of, sort of. Okay, so once again, the warm-up is C. The warm-up review is C. Introduction is F. Presentation is B. Practice is E. Evaluation is D. And application is A. All right, the answers are in the chat box if you want to double check those. How'd you do? Everybody do good? All right, good thumbs up there. Excellent. Okay, I'll get rid of this guy. All righty. For this next question, go ahead and post your response in the chat or simply put your mic on. Which WIPIA step do you think would be most challenging for you, and what resources do you think would help you to meet this challenge? Anybody want to share which of those steps might be a challenge for you?
Mine is the assessment.
Ah,
The assessment and evaluation for my individuals, mainly because their behaviors and their medications fluctuate that so much that
mm,
never get a very clear baseline at what they're learning and what they're not. Because from day to day it changes. So sometimes when I'm doing my, my connection before content about what we did the day before,
yeah.
so it's very, very difficult. That's why none of my curriculum is A through J.
Right.
Because of the amount of time and length and the amount of pathway and anchor standards that I have to have within my lessons to meet everybody's needs. So my curriculum has so many anchor standards that normally you wouldn't have that many anchor standards in a lesson with adults.
Exactly, exactly. Do you have a different set of criteria as well in your field?
My criteria mainly is in regards to student learning. Our objectives are not as classroom based as they are individually based. So I write assessments on each one of my students,
Okay.
and in those assessments, I talk
Mhm.
about their barriers to employment. So within their barriers of employment, what is it that we need to work on? What is
Mhm.
causing them to not be
Mhm.
successful in the workplace?
Mhm.
And that's what I focus on with them.
Yeah, but then so you are creating assessments that are appropriate to your group and your students.
Yes, all individually based. Yes.
Yes. And that's what you have to do. Yeah. Yeah. That's what you have to do. Okay. And do you have the resources that help you to meet this challenge?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one thing is we are very, I have a 3D printer getting ready to be hooked up over here. We do get things, I'm going to be working on those type of things. So yes, we do get what we need. Technology is kind of like if I need internet right now in my office, like I literally have to stand like this. But other than that, yeah, I get what I need.
Okay. Okay. All right. And Maria suggests, she says, in the past, warm up and introduction, sometimes they seem interchangeable. Anybody else feel that way about that? The warm up and introduction being interchangeable? And what differences do you see between the two pieces?
Well, now I'm better at realizing that a warm up is what I did yesterday or tuning into something the student knows. But in the beginning, they were interchangeable. And when I was in classes in the past with Dave Coleman, he kind of gave me some tips on how
Uh-huh.
to, but they did seem to me like they were the same. And he would be like, nope, flip it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you so much for sharing all of your ideas and thoughts. There are many ways to get started with your lesson planning, and today I'd like to share a lesson planning tool that can help you integrate the WIPIA model into your lesson planning. OTAN, the Outreach and Technical Assistance Network, another initiative of CDE's Adult Education Office, has a great tool called the Lesson Plan Builder. It's easy to use and offers templates, the ability to work with others on a lesson, and a variety of resources and information. You might already be familiar with it. If you're not, it's a great resource to use. It's powerful, and you can actually, this is the home page for the OTAN Lesson Plan Builder. You can access in Moodle also, but you should be able to access it through the QR code that you see on the screen. The goal is to give you a teacher-friendly template you can use going forward for any and all of your future lessons. There are some samples that are aligned with the backward planning we're focusing on as a method to create that effective lesson. And you also have access to the CASAS and SCANS competencies to review, and it allows you to store the template and lessons for future use. It's a great resource, can help you think through your lesson planning to improve or sharpen instruction because it asks you questions. And through the questions, then you learn, you get your lesson plan established. I think it's a really good approach they use. So you can use the QR code on the screen to open the site and check it out if you'd like to. I'll give you a moment to access that if you want. All righty. Like I said, it's in Moodle too. And if you have any other tools or resources for lesson planning that you can share, can you share those with us at this moment? If you have anything in mind that you think is really important for us as a learning community? Anybody? There are a lot of online tools these days, not all of which am I totally familiar with, but that's another resource that's out there. Okay. All right. So our next steps, if you haven't logged into Moodle already, you can find the link to our course in the chat. Some of you have. I've responded to a few of you that have posted. And be sure to engage with each other. That's what really makes this a really nice learning environment, is your engagement with each other. The activities you will see in Moodle will cover and review what we've learned about today, the ABCDs of writing objectives, and the WIPIA lesson planning model. You'll also find a reintroduction to OTAN's planning lesson plan builder and other useful links. If you have any questions, you can email Adria, CalPRO's course coordinator, or the help desk using the emailed addresses in the chat. Maria is awesome. Adria is awesome. You can also email me, and I will, if I can't target what you are asking, then I will see to it that I get it to the person who can assist you. And I would like to thank all of you for being here today. Totally and thoroughly enjoyed this. I hope it provided you some things, some good tools going forward with your groups. and I look forward to working with you in Moodle. Thank you all for being here and taking the time to do this webinar today.
Thank you.